Campbell, and I will be chairing the meeting today. This meeting is fully in person, so all members were asked to be present here in the Metro Plan Orlando boardroom. However, we will still have virtual participation for the public. I'll ask all committee members to please speak clearly and use your microphone so that those joining us virtually will be able to hear clearly. At this time, we're ready for our Pledge of Allegiance, and I've asked committee member, Mr. Sabila, to do that for us.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Sabila. There are two public comment points in our meeting. Members of the public who are here in person and would like to make a comment should submit a speaker card to Ms. Rachel Frederick. Those attending on Zoom who want to speak can use the raise hand feature on your Zoom screen. We also accepted comments by email before the meeting. We have a fairly busy agenda today, and we need to reserve time after we adjourn the regular meeting to take advantage of the workshop on the active transportation plan. As always, you can send additional questions that you might have to Ms. Mary Ann Horn, and we will make sure that they get sent to the entire group. At the July Metro Plan Orlando board meeting, I shared with the board that CAC members were very interested in Ms. Lorraine Bobo's distracted driving presentation and underscored how strongly we are in favor of regional action on safety. I'd like to take just a second. Many of us probably heard about the crisis our vice chair, Dr. Dan Stephen, had been going through with his family. So I was hoping he would be here, but something came up, he couldn't join us. But I just ask that we all kind of keep him in our thoughts and hold him up until he gets through this. Things are going well, it's on the right track, but he's still going to need that support. Okay. At this time, I'd like to turn things over to Ms. Mary Ann Horn of Metro Plan Orlando staff, who will give us our agenda review.
Thank you, Chairman Campbell. Members, all those attending both in the room and online. In this format, we need a quorum, now 16 members, which we are approaching, to conduct votes. As always, it is important to RSVP to the meeting so that we can prepare. There are still Zoom and YouTube options for the public, of course. I hope you have marked your calendars for this time next month, Wednesday, September 27th, when we have another of our informative field trips planned, this time to the Regional Transportation Management Center in Sanford. And we do not have a regular meeting. The 27th would be our meeting day, but instead we're going to take the time to take this trip. So I'd like to call Mr. Eric Hill to come and talk to us for a minute and give us a preview of what you will see at the Regional Transportation Management Center. I have been there. It is fascinating. If you've never been there, it's a good trip.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. I won't take a minute. So as part of our but our Transportation Systems Management Operations Master Plan, we want to get more information from citizens on what we need to plan for in terms of not only high-end technology, but low-end technology improvements to our transportation network. So it's going to be informal. It's going to be an opportunity for you to see the Regional Traffic Management Center. I don't know how many have been to a traffic management center, but it is pretty impressive. But in addition to being able to see the operations, we are going to be having a presentation on the TISMO Master Plan and having an exchange on what we as planners and engineers miss from the needs of the traveling public. So this is an opportunity for you to really, give us some really good information, some hard thoughts on things that we may be missing, because again, as planners and engineers, we tend to talk amongst ourselves and we miss information from the people who are actually going to be impacted by what we're doing. So it's gonna be on the 27th, start time around, it's gonna start at 10. We have about
I think we're gonna start at 9:30.
9:30, okay, 9:30, all right. Keep it consistent with your meeting time. So, but we have the room, the space until 12. So if there's any spillover from, the tour as well as the presentation, we still have that time to engage. So look forward to you being there. If you have any questions, I can try and address right now.
Give us a preview of what we might see.
So, if you, I don't want to give away.
Oh,
I mean,
just a little bit.
try- Okay, so, if you've seen NASA, the NASA central operations where they're watching the satellite and watching the launches and how that operates, something similar to that. And it's interesting, I think most people will find it interesting to see how we are using information, technology, communication systems to not only improve safety on our roadways, but reliability, and to make everyone's travel better. So again, I don't want to.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I'm good with that.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks,
you.
Eric. It is fascinating, seeing the full traffic picture, the way that you do in the facility is impressive. So anyone who would like to take part in the trip, please let me know so that we can get a rough head count. We will be giving you more details about when and how we'll meet up there and how to get there. But I hope as many of you as possible can come next month. Next, I would like to introduce a couple of new staff members at Metro Plan Orlando. One may appear strikingly familiar. First, I would like for you to meet Ms. Adriana Rodriguez. She is a new senior transportation engineer on our staff, and you'll be hearing more from her on many projects that she's getting involved with. We're glad to have her with us. And now please welcome back Ms. Laura Bauk, senior transportation engineer and project manager, returning from an experiment working for the city of Tampa. She is now right back where she belongs. Welcome home. Speaking of changes at Metro Plan Orlando, something big happened over the weekend. Did you see it? Did you see it? Our website has now officially become metroplanorlando.gov. There were a couple of good reasons that we decided to make this change. The .gov domain is safer because of extra security measures that are used and required for launch. It is more recognizable to the public that we are an authentic government site. All of our email addresses, web pages, documents will now carry the .gov domain. However, during the transition, the old email and web address will still work. They will still connect you with us, so don't panic if you make a mistake. Over the next few weeks, we'll be working to get everybody on board with the new domain, and we'll be putting out more information about the site for the public. We're kind of in a soft opening right now, but we're there. And we have refreshed all of our website content and graphics. You will notice a greater presence for safety and technology on the new site. We're also offering a roundup of partner news that we hadn't done before that keeps you updated on other transportation happenings. So we'll be promoting the changes on social media and in targeted emails. We also have a survey asking for opinions, which is open now. And we would really appreciate you both giving us your feedback on that survey. The link is in the slide and also on our website. If you would please take the survey and also share it in your information and social networks, we would appreciate that because we want people to know what we've done, and we'd like to to hear how that's landing out in the community. Now I would like to turn it over to Mr. Mike Wilson for our safety moment.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Good morning, everyone. Our safety moment this month is focusing on intoxication, impairment while behind the wheel. The theme from NHTSA is, drive sober or get pulled over. I want to give you a little bit of background on data as to kind of how we're doing in that area. As you recall, last time I was talking about just kind of our overall crash trend has been downward, but as has been for teen driving, also with impaired driving, particularly for fatal crashes, that we have seen an increase of 8% from pre-COVID to post-COVID. Although overall impairment for fatal and serious crashes has been down. So for some reason, we're getting increase in severity, even though our overall decline in crashes. Thought it'd be interesting to see how we're comparing to our peers around the state. We're kind of in the middle there. You can see we're at about 7.5% of our fatal and serious crashes involve an impaired driver. Whereas if you look at Miami-Dade at the lowest at a little over 5% and Jacksonville at over 17%. So we could improve, but we're better than some. And then also looking at the trend, again, we're kind of in the middle there. We're down somewhat, again, on fatal and serious impaired crashes. But you can see that Miami-Dade has actually dropped by 20%, while up in the Panhandle, they're actually on the increase. So anyway, some mixed news there on that. We can always do better. Finally, your actual safety moment, something to think about. We're of course the obvious thing is people who are extremely drunk are an obvious threat, but being buzzed is a problem as well. Recall back when I was showing you the speed video and how small differences in speed can have a profound impact downstream. Well, the same goes for drunk driving. Even if, let's say, may have an additional half second or second of reaction time that being buzzed might create, would make a profound difference in your stopping distance and the impact in a crash.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut, the one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink, or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking, now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed, better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead, catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
All right, and that's the safety moment for this month. Be happy to take any questions.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. O'Hanlon?
Seems to be a dramatic difference as to increases and decreases in different parts of the state. Take a guess at why that's taking place.
I really have no idea. Yeah, I think it would take a lot of data mining time that it didn't even really, I couldn't even think about what other factors I should look at, but I'm not that experienced in the drunk driving realm of data to even think about how those might differ.
In addition to this, in talking with Eric this morning, we need to start keeping track of the number of lives saved because of full self-driving and the amount of crashes that didn't happen because of full self-driving. And I realize that those numbers are small right now. Actually, they're unbelievably tiny because basically there are no deaths and there are no crashes. But we need to start keeping track of that so we can start educating the public about this thing that they fear potentially saves their life.
Yeah, that is something I've given some thought to. We need to think about what kind of data can we collect that will at least give us a big picture of what's the impact of autonomous vehicles on our overall safety.
Ms. Mott, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. O'Hanlon touched on my question, but I just want to say thank you so much for keeping us aware of all of this stuff. It's scary at the same time, but it's information that we need to hear. But thank you for sharing that. And thank you to Metro for bringing this part of, making this part of our presentation each month. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. As I mentioned, we do not have a regular CAC meeting scheduled in September. We will be doing the TISMO workshop on that date. Looking ahead, there are a couple of things to note. Mobility Week, an event that offers a lot of opportunities to participate in transportation-oriented events, will kick off on October 27th. So keep an eye out for information coming out between now and then. When we come back together in October, we will be taking the first step toward our annual changing of the guard for CAC leadership. At that meeting, we will be asking for volunteers to serve on an officer selection subcommittee that will meet virtually in November to come up with nominations for our chair and vice chair. So that means that now is a good time to think about whether you would like to serve either on that subcommittee or whether you might be interested in serving as chair or vice chair of the CAC in 2024. Our esteemed chair, Mr. Campbell, is term limited, so he will be stepping down. We'll have more details for you in October, but you can contact me at any time to talk about this, and I'm happy to share more with you. Particularly if you have not been on the CAC for very long, you may have questions about what leadership entails, and I'm happy to lay that out for you. So at this time, there are no changes to the printed agenda, and I am ready to turn it over to Ms. Rachel Frederick for our roll call, which I believe will have a positive news for our voting situation.
Thank you. Good morning. Butler, Bobinger, Bolton, Bosley,
Present.
Buttery, Campbell,
Here.
Citro Medina, Coleman, Koloko Masso, Colong, Council, Davis, El Badri,
Present.
Gus, Henry, Lopez, Mormon,
Here.
Mott,
Present.
Mueller,
Here.
Niesman, O'Hanlon, Pereira,
Present.
Peters, Pigram,
Present.
Pizzo,
Present.
Rump, Salas, Shaw, Sabira,
Present.
Stevens, Webster,
Here.
White.
Present.
That concludes the roll call. Mr. Chairman, we do have a quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Yes. I'd like to just say welcome again to Ms. Rodriguez and welcome home to Laura. Happy to have you home with us. We will now hear public comments on action items. Do we have anyone online who'd like to speak to any of the items? If so, please use the raise hand function on your screen or press *9 on your phone keypad. When we call your name, the host will unmute your telephone or your microphone. You will see a button that pops up, says the host would like to unmute you. Accept a prompt to activate your microphone. We will ask that you provide your name and address for the record. Please hold your comments to 2 minutes. Are there any comments at this time?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. There are no hands raised on the virtual side.
Okay. Do we have anyone present in the boardroom today who wish to make comments on action items?
I have not received any comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Were there any written comments that were submitted before the meeting?
Mr. Chair, we did not receive any written comments before the meeting.
Okay. We have 3 action items today. First is the approval of our minutes from the June 28th meeting. We'll ask for a motion and a second, then open the floor for discussion. Members making or seconding a motion, please state your name for the record. Moving on to our minutes, we are looking for an approval or a motion to accept.
Teresa, I move to approve the minutes as printed,
Ms.
Mr.
Mott.
Chairman.
Judy Pizzo, I second.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion regarding the minutes? Hearing none, this is a voice vote, so I'll ask now for approval.
Approved. Aye.
Did I hear that?
Approval. Aye.
Any opposes? Hearing none, motion carries. Very good. Okay. Next, we're considering a recommendation for approval of a FDOT amendment to the Transportation Improvement Program. Mr. Jason Satorio of Metro Plan Orlando staff is here to provide some more information. Mr. Satorio, the floor is yours.
Morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Jason Sartorio. This morning, I have one tip amendment for you. Additional information regarding this amendment is located in tab 2 of your agendas. This amendment is for the 10th Street Complete Street Project, Phase 1. This is a new project which is being funded through a federal discretionary grant awarded to the city of St. Cloud. As I mentioned earlier, you all have some additional information regarding this amendment located in tab 2 of your agenda packets. With that being said, unless there are any questions, we are asking for your recommendation of approval of the amendment. Thank you.
Okay. Before I call for any questions at this point at all. Okay, I'll call for the vote. Oh. Okay. Any opposes? Any further discussion? Motion carries. I think you're on again, right?
Yep.
Okay, next we have recommendation for approval of a roll forward amendment to fiscal year 2024 to 2028 Transportation Improvement Plan.
Yep.
You have our attention again.
So as you said, and next we have our annual roll forward amendment. This includes projects which have funds that were originally programmed in last year's TIP for fiscal year 2023. These funds were not committed by the end of the fiscal year on June 30th. So they automatically roll forward to fiscal year 2024 in FDOT's new adopted 5-year work program, which came out in July. We have to amend our TIP to include these project funds so that we can remain consistent with the work program. This does not affect the cost or the schedule of these projects. And as many of you know, this is a routine procedure that we go through at about the same time every year. The information regarding this is located in tab 3 of your agenda packets. That being said, unless there are any questions, we're asking for your recommendation of approval of the amendment. Thank you.
Any initial questions? Okay, we have a first. Get a second? We have a second. You have a first, a second. Any supplemental questions to be asked at this point? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Any opposes? Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, if I can interrupt, we didn't have a motion maker or a second for the first amendment.
Mr. Hanlon gave us the first, didn't you? Okay, well, let's.
Could we repeat who made
Who made the
the
first
motion and the second on both of these? I think we need to hear.
On the first one, who made the motion? It's okay, it's not a trick. Okay, I'll call the motion on the first one again. Okay, for the approval of the FDOT amendment to fiscal year 2024 to 2028 Transportation Improvement Plan, we're looking for an approval. Okay, we have a motion.
David Sabila, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions regarding it? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposes? Hearing none, the motion carries.
And who was the, who provided the second on the roll forward?
We do the motions. Let's state our name so we can make it really clear about who's doing it. Okay, moving on. We have two presentations today. We will wrap up our regular meeting following the presentation, so we have time for the workshop that we have planned out. Our first presentation is a status update on Metroplan Orlando's Vision Zero Action Plan. Mr. Mike Wilson's back. Metroplan Orlando staff will share the information. Mr. Wilson, you have our attention.
Thank you. Good morning again. Yeah, so just a few minutes to give you an update on our Vision Zero planning efforts. We kicked things off last week with our first task force meeting, which was very well attended and had really good engagement with the task force. On this presentation, I'm going to spend a little time talking about what the Vision Zero approach is and tell you a little bit about what our key tasks are and then what our project looks like going forward. In the first task force meeting, we looked at the high-level crash trends for both nationally and locally. They got a really in-depth picture of what the Vision Zero system is, the SAFE system is, and how that gets implemented in the planning process. They went very in-depth into the key tasks that we'll be pursuing over the coming year, and then what to expect from the plan in the way of priorities and programs that we will implement to improve our safety. And then again, the project schedule with details into what we'll be doing at each step and each of the task force meetings. And so we had really good feedback from the task force as to questions about what sort of data they'd like to see and what sort of additional issues they'd want to discuss in coming meetings. So what is the Vision Zero approach? Well, ultimately, it's a shift in mindset from what we've traditionally done in safety. And we really have to start off with the concept that a loss of life is not an acceptable price for our mobility. We know how to reduce these severe injuries and traffic deaths on our system. And so we need to be bold and move forward in doing that. And that means being proactive, not just reacting to the problems that are happening. So the overall approach is framing these crashes as being preventable, that human failing is to be expected. Where none of us are perfect, we will make mistakes. And so how do we design a system that will account for that? We really want to focus on the fatal and severe crashes rather than trying to eliminate all crashes. There are trade-offs to be made within our system. Sometimes in order to reduce fatal and severe crashes, we might have to accept an increase in minor non-injury crashes. And to do this, we need a safe system. So rather than just relying on individuals to always do the right thing, we need to look at the whole system and figure out where are the points of failure all along the line and make improvements everywhere. In order to do that, we need good data so that we can make the decisions, we can focus on the right things rather than just what we feel might be the problem. And social equity is also a major component of this, because what we find is that those with lesser means when it comes to transportation are often on the receiving end of more of these fatalities and serious injuries. The elements of our Vision Zero system, of any good Vision Zero system, are setting clear goals. How are we going to reduce these fatalities and severe injuries? A commitment from elected officials to a Vision Zero goal of by what point are we going to get to zero fatalities? And then having actions that we have strategies that we're going to pursue, whether that's in roadway design, particularly speed management, and then of course the educational enforcement outreach as well. Having all the key partners at work in this, whether it's police, transportation planning, public health, everyone who touches traffic safety in some way has to be engaged. And again, the data driving all that decision making. the key tasks that we have going forward in this process, we are right now in the kickoff stage. We've got our task force and our working groups and steering committees at the various levels of government. We have the task force at the regional level. The counties have their steering committees, which are larger. And then at the local municipal level, there are smaller working groups that are more staff oriented on focusing on what those fewer number of city related projects will be. We're also in the midst of doing our big crash analysis, developing our high injury network and looking at all the associated data, the land use and demographic and environmental data that corresponds to the crashes, as well as, of course, the behaviors that contribute to those crashes. From that, we then will be developing materials to, in addition to that, we're developing materials for all of our partners so that they can develop their own plans that are consistent with the regional plan. Moving forward into the fall, we'll be looking at the countermeasures that will be tied back to the types of crashes that are happening. And those countermeasures are both engineering, what we do with the built environment, as well as the behavioral non-engineering countermeasures. We'll also be looking at policy review, looking at every level of government. What are the current policies and plans look like, and how do we beef them up to the standards that we want for a Vision Zero plan. Then as we get into the winter and next spring, we'll be identifying the prioritized projects and the strategies that we will be implementing. And then by the end of spring, early summer, we'll be actually adopting not only the regional plan, but all the county and city plans as well. So everyone will have adopted plans that make projects that are eligible for additional federal funding, because there is funding available for building actual projects. But you have to have an eligible plan in order to get that federal funding. So our next steps, we have our next task force meeting on September 19th. You are all, of course, welcome to sit in on those, just as you are any other meeting, and you can get access to the Zoom link on that on the calendar at the Metro Plan site. All of the task force meetings are via Zoom. The other agencies, the counties and cities, are right now in the process of finishing up their scopes and launching their plans with various consultants that we have on board. And then starting next month, we will have what we call our hub site, which is the big regional data site that will be launched, that will give everyone access to all the important data, and you can filter it in a myriad number of ways to get a really good picture of what the crash issues are in your own particular area or in the region overall. And then again, developing detailed crash analysis and improving those policies going forward is the other critical upcoming component. So that's our update on where we are with the plan, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Questions for Mr. Wilson? We'll start on the right here. Not all at once now. I knew you'd come to the board, Mr. O'Hanlon.
It's tough too. Glad we're looking.
Ms. Gus.
Hello. Good morning. Thank you for sharing. This is something that because I work so much with the city of Kissimmee, and I want to be able to bring partnership with the community, but with the government, but I don't see a lot of the Vision Zero stuff there. So how could I lead maybe commissioners or anybody else into like, who do I direct them to, I guess?
Okay. Well, actually, you could start off with Adriana. She's heading up the Osceola County component of the plan. So Osceola has its steering group, which and Kissimmee and St. Cloud are really well integrated with the county in their planning process. So give it to Adriana, and she can help.
Thank you so much.
Direct you in the right direction.
I was going to add something real quick to that.
and Mike mentioned, so we've kicked off the regional plan. As part of the grant, we also got, as Mike mentioned, funds to develop county and city level plans. So we're still scoping those and finalizing the scope. Each of those county and city specific plans are also going to include public engagement, elected official training, a lot of space time in front of the councils and commissions, but also pop-up meetings in each of the local communities. So over the next 10 months, you're going to be hearing a lot about Vision Zero here at, as part of Metro Plan's planning process, but also our county governments and municipalities are also going to be going through the same steps of the process. So each of those kind of milestones and activities that Mike spoke about as part of the regional plan, each of our municipalities are going to be kind of reflecting on, looking in the mirror as well. So we just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Mr. Mueller.
Yeah, Mike, so much going through my mind right now with this, and it's I'm really happy to see something like this going on, and just things like there's so much to this that doesn't even affect the roadways and the infrastructure. It's like, I'm thinking about UCF where which is my reference points, and the deaths that have occurred on the roads right around there. And, there's a couple of highly frequented bars that minors go into, and they end up walking home, and some are end up in a fatality just by walking on the streets and crossing the road. So, I don't know how you fix that problem with roadways. I mean, that's almost like a political thing that has to be done to try to figure out what to do about these places that allow the minors to drink in them and to walk home. So I guess I don't really have any questions, but just the scope of this project is very important, I think, and what it encompasses and how we get to zero, I mean, so really that's my point that I wanted to make. So, thank you.
Okay, Ms. White, you're recognized.
Yes, thanks, Mike. I just want to commend you. Thank you for always including public health in your work. Having representation and looking at the health impact of transportation is so important. So thank you for always including public health. I saw it on the slide. Thank you.
Mr. Sabila, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this is great work, and last year, a committee member brought up a conversation that was a very tough conversation where they mentioned the acceptable loss of life in order to keep the economy going, was their exact words. I actually had to leave the room because my blood was boiling. And I'm glad to see that our community is not accepting that, as those of us that were in the room remember. I'm glad to see our community is not accepting fatalities as just a normal way of keeping things going. So thank you for your work. Appreciate it.
I recall I lost my composure on that one too. Are we all set over here? Okay, I'll turn my back on you, but we're not going to this side. Ms. Elbondry.
Hi, good morning, Mike. I think Alex touched on this, but I just want to confirm, my seat on CAC is from the city of Sanford. Seminole County will definitely be developing a Vision Zero plan. Is the city of Sanford going to be developing their own as well, or?
Yes, we just met with the city the other day and talking over their scope and their process.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. Great to hear.
Ms. Mott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Mine is a quick comment and just a question. One slide you referenced on, it was under project steps. It referenced land use. I was a little bit confused as to what was the association to which tier that ranged to. And it may be an oversight on my part, but I appreciate it.
Well, when it comes to land use, understanding what are all the inputs into our crash rates. So certain types of land use might be associated with a higher crash risk or certain types of crashes, maybe more pedestrian or less pedestrian, et cetera. So understanding those connections, and that helps us to be more proactive. So if we see that an area is developing in a certain way from a land use standpoint, then let's be proactive and also provide the infrastructure that's going to be appropriate to address the potential safety risks.
Okay, thank you. Great presentation as well. That concludes my question, Mr.
Okay, I think we're all set. Thank you so much. Good job. Next, we have an update from Ms. Catherine Telez of Fair and Piers, who will give us some information about the developing active transportation plan to prepare us for workshop exercise a little later. Ms. Telez, the floor is yours.
Great. Good morning, Chairman and committee members. So it's been almost a year since we were last here kicking off our 2050 active transportation plan. And really just as a refresher, the purpose of this plan is to improve transportation safety outcomes for our most vulnerable roadway users. So people walking and biking, you don't have that steel cage of a car around you to protect you. Create a list of projects that we can add to the existing list of active transportation projects, and then support and promote our complementary travel modes. So how do we get people walking and biking to transit? So our goal for this brief presentation is really just to provide you with some high-level project updates and then introduce the workshop format, and then provide you with some information on our next steps, including what feedback we need from you all today and over the next few weeks, because there's a lot of information here and you might need to think about things before you provide your final feedback. So the last time we were together was October 2022, right before Halloween. So unfortunately, we didn't bring candy today because, you know, it's still swimsuit season. And you provided really some valuable feedback at that meeting to help us validate our existing and then sort of what was already on the books in terms of the planned active transportation facilities. Since then, we've conducted a host of additional evaluations, really looking at safety, comfort, what the vehicle travel speeds are on roadways, accessibility. So how are people able to walk and bike to different locations, incorporating demographics, and then really formalizing sort of our definition of facility types that will be referenced in the plan, just to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing. So the first analysis here, and the facility types are shown on figures 1 through 4 of the handouts, just for reference. So one of the first analyses was to conduct a bicycle level of traffic stress. So this is sort of a process where we can identify roadways that are comfortable for people to ride their bikes on, and then the extreme of being very uncomfortable. And we want to make sure that we're not looking at comfort in terms of use, because we are finding that a lot of people are using facilities that are uncomfortable, but it's because that's probably one of the only transportation choices that they have. So really making sure that we're not conflating those two things. So starting with the highest comfort levels, so 1 and 2. So these would be our shared use paths and side trails where you're really separated from vehicle traffic. And then the level of traffic stress 3 and 4. So those are, maybe you're sharing a lane, maybe there's really high speed traffic next to you. And then some of the data inputs to this analysis are the type of bicycle facility type, the volume of traffic, the speed of traffic, and really the sort of, if it is an on-street bicycle lane, is there a buffer or not? So there's a lot of various inputs, and some of those details are provided on figure 5. That's sort of a flow chart of the analysis process, with the results then shown on figure 7. We then looked at the pedestrian level of comfort. So the inputs to this analysis are similar to the bicycle level of traffic stress, but this is really focused on the walking infrastructure. So we're looking at the type of pedestrian facility. Is it a sidewalk only on one side of the street? Is it on both sides of the street? Is there a landscape buffer separating the pedestrian path from vehicle traffic? How much traffic is there? What's the speed? We also added a pedestrian level of comfort 5 category, and this is where there are no sidewalks. And so, an able-bodied person, you might be able to traipse through, the landscaped area. But if you're in a wheelchair or have some other mobility impairment, you might not even be able to pass that roadway. So we really wanted to call those out. So the scoring criteria that was used in the analysis is shown on your figure 6, with the results then summarized on figure 8. We then wanted to see how accessible a variety of non-residential land uses are to where people live. So we could really understand where in the region people have a high level of access to a variety of things via walking and biking modes, versus where people don't have a lot of access. And so we identified some key destinations based on feedback from the steering committee. So looking at public schools, transit facilities, parks, jobs, and shopping, including grocery stores. So things that people typically go to either on a daily or weekly basis. Really wanted to understand how accessible those are. So we looked at some travel sheds, what you could get to within a 5-minute walk, within sort of that 6 to 15 minutes, and then within about 30 minutes for both walking and biking. And the results of this are shown on figures 9 and 10. And then we also layered on top how comfortable that route might be. So this way we're able to identify locations within the region where maybe there's a lot of things that you could get to, and the access is really comfortable, and that's great. So those are our models for us to look at. And then conversely, looking at places where there's a lot of things to get to, but the routes are really uncomfortable. And this can help us inform either where we need new projects or where we might need to prioritize existing projects that are already planned. And then we are also able to pull in some of the underlying demographics to sort of understand who in the region has high levels of access versus low levels of access. And we were able to document that people who live in disadvantaged communities, they have lower levels of access on those comfortable facilities. So as we're looking at new projects, we'll be able to calculate who benefits from those projects and incorporate that as well into some of the prioritization. And then we'll be looking at this for sort of the existing plan projects as well as the 2050 projects that you'll all be looking at today. So we took all of that analysis and we started to think about what was already planned and on the books, and then where we could add some additional enhancements. So we looked at really sort of 4 main buckets of projects, where we might be able to add new trail segments in the region. And an input to that analysis was really looking at all of the utility corridors, and where we might be able to work with the utility provider and provide a trail along those corridors. We also looked at locations for intersection crossing treatment. So this was done in 2 ways. The first was really looking at safety. So where are there high rates of bicycle and pedestrian fatalities and serious injuries at intersections, because those are locations where we want to take a focused look. And then where do we have trails or other really great walking and biking facilities that cross 6-lane roadways. So it can be challenging to get across those 6-lane roadways. So again, that was sort of how we were able to identify potential locations. We then looked at corridor improvements, where we might want to look at a longer stretch of roadway. For that, we looked again at safety. We looked at travel speed. We looked at where we have on-street bike lanes that maybe there's 4 or 6+ travel lanes, and speeding and a host of things, or maybe that's just not very comfortable. Maybe there's some opportunities to improve those. And then we also looked at where there are locations we could identify additional or new bicycle and pedestrian bridges or tunnels. So overall, we identified about 400 potential projects, which was a lot. But then we realized there's already a lot of planned projects on the system, and there's some where it's, there's already a plan to resurface that roadway. So we sort of flagged those of, okay, as that resurfacing project goes through, here's 5 things to think about just to make sure that these opportunities aren't missed. And then overall, we identified about 100 or so new projects that you'll get to see during the workshop. We also started working on some policy recommendations. So some related to ADA accessibility, making sure that our facilities are accessible to all, implementing a user count program. So really wanting to understand who's using our trails, different facilities. This data can be great to help us understand who's using the system, what that demand is, and then help justify new facilities. Some micro mobility policies just to make sure everybody has a good starting point. And then some guidance for bicycle facility selection, making sure that as projects are going through, the most appropriate bicycle facility for the conditions is being considered. So that's sort of a high level overview of what we've been working on in the last 10 months or so. And there's a host of data, and there was an existing conditions report posted online. So there's lots of additional data out there if you're all interested in that. So I'm going to introduce some of the workshop components, and then at the end of the meeting, you guys will have an opportunity to look through everything. So you may have seen in some of the conference rooms on your way in, we have a host of boards. So we have mapped our existing and planned on-street bicycle and pedestrian facilities, and then the off-street facilities as well. So these are things that are already on the books, that are already happening. And then we've also mapped the critical sidewalk bundles that Metro Plan has been working on over the last year as well. So where those sidewalk gaps will be filled. And then lastly, we have the draft of the 2050 project. So these are ones that would then be layered on top of everything that's already planned. With your handouts, you have a host of information there that we've already gone through. And then we have an interactive map that's linked to the feedback map, where you'll be able to see some of the analysis results. You can zoom in a little bit more. You can see where all those planned facilities are. And then a little bit more detail about some of the draft projects as well. So we have things separated by county in different rooms, and we know you probably live and work in maybe one county, maybe two. So love for you to kind of start where you're most familiar, but please visit all of the other boards because your feedback is invaluable. So Orange County will be just in the Harold Barley conference room, and then Seminole County will be in the conference room next to that, and we have some signage. And then in the atrium, we'll have Osceola County, as well as a computer set up with the interactive map. So if you do have questions or need some help figuring out how to navigate it, there's also some QR codes. You can pull it all up on your phone as well. And we'll make sure to send out links after this just to make sure you have everything. And then there's a couple of ways to provide feedback. So through the QR code, you'll be linked to our social pinpoint map, where you can put points and lines on a map and provide very detailed feedback. We have the boards, we have pens, we have sticky notes. Please feel free to write on the boards, write on the sticky notes. Whatever way is most easy for you, we just really want to get your feedback. Let's see. So then just next steps before I pause for questions. You can kind of see we've done a lot of work, and this is really the culmination of it all coming together. We'll be drafting the plan based on the feedback today, sort of October, November timeframe, with the plan to have a final draft plan by the end of the year. We'll be taking all of the feedback from the CAC and TAC and wrapping it all up and consolidating it, and then going out to the public in October to get their feedback as well on the draft networks. And then we'll have our final steering committee meeting in December, and final presentations in January. So with that, happy to answer questions you might have.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Tellez. Okay, questions? We're gonna say, let's start over here, but we're getting a kind of slow start. I'll come over here and we'll come back to you. Questions that come up. Mr. Mueller.
I'll go first. Thank you. This is wonderful news. Is this a continuation of the workshop we had a while back, a few months ago? So this is a result of that?
Correct, yes.
Okay, yeah, this is wonderful, because I finally feel that there's communication between what bicycles and pedestrian people are doing and driving, where, you know, I'd see a road go in with a bike path, a 45-mile-an-hour road go in with a bike path right next to it with no barriers or anything like that. So, you know, this is really wonderful in my opinion, because it's just it just seems like two sides are talking to each other, you know, which I think is is really good and will be a good step forward. So looking forward to the outcome.
Mr. Pigram, you recognize.
Thank you, Chair. Piggybacking on that, awesome to see this. My role in this committee as a Metro Plan appointee is a multimodal advocate. So this aligns exactly with the type of stuff I love to see in these meetings. Knowing that this is kind of that visioning and looking, 30 years out, one of the components that I understand will take long-term discussion, but I didn't really see addressed in here is the funding component. How do we accelerate this? And so I guess my comment would be, I think one of the unfortunate misses with Sunrail was not TOD taxable capture areas around the stations. So in general, the development around the Sunrail stations has more than paid for the system, but it wasn't part of an immediate capture TOD district around the stations. That could then go to reinvesting to expand accessibility to the stations or modified zoning. So, I'd love to see this accelerated, exploring what funding opportunities there are to change the way that we capture this value that we know that these systems add, that people want to live near these types of facilities.
Ms. Pizzo.
Thank you, Chairman.
I think Taylor was.
Excellent presentation. It's very interesting and it's great to see how far it has progressed. I do have just one simple question, and that is in regard, you mentioned the utility corridors. And I know in my previous life, DOT, those utilities, they weren't always cooperative in wanting the pedestrian traffic through there. They had set barrier perimeters around the bases of their equipment and such. So how are you, or is this a fair question to ask, how are you addressing that challenge?
That's a great question. We are actually able to map the utility corridors by ownership, and we flagged some where that probably not going to happen, and sort of left those off the list, and then flagged a few others where it's, private property that could be developed. So those are opportunities as development occurs, incorporating some sort of trail feature along those corridors. And then others where it's sort of a little lower hanging fruit. So there's actually not that many new potential trail corridors for that very reason.
Ms. Laurent, were you going to address the funding question?
Hear any feedback or any discussions that have happened?
Wasn't quite sure how much detail we wanted to get into that today. So thank you. Going back to the funding question. So our active transportation plan is going to directly feed into and serve as the needs assessment for bicycle and pedestrian and other active modes for our next 2050 metropolitan transportation plan. That's when we'll really dive into questions and conversations about funding, what's allocated to each mode, or what are those new policies will be for the next 2050 years.
Okay, thank you. We all set over here? Oh. Mr. O'Hanlon, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Certainly agree with all of the comments here. But some of us older folks here who have been working on this for decades. This effort is phenomenal, but it's really a continuation of what Metro Plan here has been working on forever. Some of you may not know that we were the pedestrian fatality capital of the country. And due to efforts of this group and others supporting us, we're no longer the top rated pedestrian deaths in the country. So a lot of progress has really been made. And, putting this all together, kind of summarizing it from all angles, I think is a great way to continue that and hopefully have lots more success. And it kind of feeds into Mike's thing about 0 fatalities. And this certainly helps that effort. So thank you for all your efforts.
Okay. Ms. Rump, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. Thank you for the presentation. I've just got an observation. I live in the Pine Hills area, and there's great road constructions going on Pine Hills Road. There's a combination of work between the county and the state. And during this work process going on, the bicycle lane is no longer there because they need the part of the road constructions to park the vehicles. So I received so many phone calls and so many emails as the bicyclist, where are they was gonna go? Now they're sharing their mode of transportation with the pedestrian on the sidewalk. So just for future consideration, when this type of construction go on, think about the bicyclist that's gonna lose their way of safety and traveling on the road. Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Webster, you good? Okay. Ms. Mormon? Smile, everybody good? Well, okay. Mr. Les, thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
All right. That concludes our presentation, so thank you very much. There are several items under general information and tab 4 in your agenda packets. Our next in-person CAC meeting will be October 25th this year. We do not meet in September. I remember our field trip on the 27th. But we do have a TISMO workshop, so that's what we want to make sure we're there for. The CAC meeting dates throughout the rest of the year, of course, are in your agenda packets. Please remember that RSVPs are very important. We sweat when you're not here to start the meeting, worrying about the quorum. The next Metro Plan Orlando board meeting will be on September 13th. At this time, do we have any committee members who'd like to make a final comment? Okay. We've now come to the second public comment period. If any members of the public wish to comment and are joining us virtually, please use the raise hand function and you will be recognized. Or dial *9 on your phone keypad. We will send you a prompt to unmute your mic. After you are recognized, please state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 2 minutes. Do we have anyone join us virtually who would like to make a comment?
Mr. Chairman, there are no hands raised on the virtual side.
Do we have any members of the public attending in person who would like to make a public comment?
Mr. Chairman, I have received no comments.
Were there any written comments that were submitted before the meeting?
No, Mr. Chairman, there were no written comments submitted before the meeting.
Okay. Well, I'd just like to say again, please remember our field trip on Wednesday, September 27th. We want to have a great showing for that. RSVPs are very important. And as always, thank you to our guests that are here today, to the staff here at Metro Plan, and of course, Ms. Mary Ann Horn next to me that makes everything seamless. Did I miss something? At this time, if this
I want to ask again for comments.
was there a comment that I missed? Oh, I thought it was still up from the.
3 quick ones. With all of the climate change, unbelievable flooding resulting from it, I think we need to do a survey of all of our CIS roads here and make sure they're going to survive the next flood that's probably coming in the next month.
I hope not.
Okay, so the request is that we look at our CIS system and figure out where our vulnerability is, where those roads are going to go underwater. And think about doing something about it for the future. As I've just watched sections of Oviedo go underwater from a 1 in 750-year flood that has never happened before. Our roads are going to be in the same condition. 2, I would like an update at the next meeting or thereafter of the Osceola Parkway expansion progress. One of our members used to be on the board. We used to get updates every couple of months. I'd like to know how that progress is, especially with the unbelievable growth in Osceola County. And third, all of us have probably noticed the EV bicycles everywhere. They're sprouting up absolutely everywhere. And part of that reason for it is you now have an EV bicycle that is phenomenal for under $1,000. That's still a very high price, but compared to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, that's much cheaper. And those bicycles will be coming even cheaper. We're going to see untold quantities in these bicycles. And that's great for transportation and great for working on the committee. So we're heading in the right direction on all of these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The EV bikes actually kind of scare me because they're going to be sharing the trail with the pedestrians and those of us that can't afford $1,000 bicycle. So I just wanted to, Mary Ann had mentioned that in October, we have, in my mind just went blank, transportation. Hello.
Mobility Week.
Mobility Week, thank you. I was thinking of EV bikes. Mobility Week is coming up in October, and if I'm allowed, Bike Walk Central Florida is having their Bike 5 cities and register, you cyclists out there. It's open for registration right now, and that happens on October 14th. And that also happens to be the due date of our director. She's having a baby on that day. So, so sign up for that Bike 5.
Yeah, electric bikes is an issue. I mean, they're going to be on the sidewalks with people walking. They're on the beach for that matter. And it's hard to kind of regulate what's going on with that. Mr. Mueller.
I have to chime in on the EV bike thing, and because I mentioned it in another meeting a while back, and in the study, I hope that's being considered because they're everywhere. I have two EV bikes, and they're capable of 30+ miles per hour, and they're basically scooters, motorcycles, you know, so. And they're gonna just get faster and better and longer ranges and everything else. And they'll probably be at the 5 bikes. You'll probably see some of them out there. So, you know, just we got to keep that at the forefront of our minds, and it has to be incorporated into everything that we're doing as far as transportation goes. So
Yeah, how do we govern whether they're pedaling or riding a motorcycle at the beach? That's what you reckon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you everyone for the very informative presentations. Just had a comment question, still trying to understand the relationship between MetroPlan and the counties. A few months ago, I submitted a request to Osceola County on 192 in St. Cloud. There aren't any benches or awnings for the bus stops. And with the summer, we all know how hot it is. Very concerned about any risks, especially those who rely on public trans. We definitely, that's definitely an opportunity to that we can act upon. So I'll follow up on that. But if MetroPlan can also take another direction, would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Hang on, I think someone wants to make a comment on that.
Oh,
Sorry, I was having mic issues. I'm Sarah Larson. I'm a transportation planner with MetroPlan Orlando. That's a links issue, but we can let the staff at Links know about that. And actually right now, Links is doing a bus stop inventory of their entire system across the 3 counties, seeing which stops have which facilities, and based on their ridership, what kind of facilities they need. Because in a perfect world, of course, you know, every stop would have, you know, a bench and an awning and everything that they would need. But unfortunately, that's not cost feasible right now. So they are doing a study, but I can get you in touch with, you know, the people at Links who are working on that.
yes, absolutely. Please. Thank you for that. And I definitely understand the budget constraints. It just really stuck out to me since it was I'm referring to 192, the main road. So I'm not sure, you know, St. Cloud has blown up so much. I'm sure keeping up with growth is a challenge, but looking forward to any connections. That would be great. Thank you.
We, if I may, we do have Link staff joining us virtually, not in the room, so I don't know, Virginia, does our Links representative, that person there able to speak?
My intention for letting you know was not to put them on the spot, but just to let you know that they were online and could possibly be taking note of the request. His hand just went up. One moment.
Okay.
Rachel, if you can allow Cody Johnson.
We also have a representative in the room who's apparently willing to speak to this too. I'm sorry for that.
If you would just share with us.
Come on up.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Peters, you reckon?
Good morning. In addition to the addition of the EV cyclists, I think we have to pay attention our transportation systems to the mass number of scooters. Just got back from Europe and I was amazed to see the number of scooters that are in the major cities. It's bicycles and scooters that are in the major cities, a vast number. I mean, there are huge stands along the main streets just for those cyclists, and scooters. So we have to pay serious attention to that in our transportation planning.
Gotta keep our eyes open to that. Thank you. Ms. Run.
Thank you, Chair. Just quickly, at our October meeting, can we also get an update of the extension for the Pine Hills Road to the Maitland Exchange? Is that on or off? What's the status of that Pine Hills Road extension going north to the Maitland Exchange? Thank you.
Okay, does that do it for all of our member comments? Okay, with that, at this time, if there's no further business, our regular meeting is adjourned and our live stream will stop at this point. Members may make your way to the rooms where the active transportation material is displayed and offer any comments or opinions. There will be a team of members there to answer questions that you might have. When you finish with your input, you're free to go.
How's it going?
Good, how are
I wasn't
you?
Sure whether we would have a quorum. That's the, my 15-minute lasted.
We were sweating, but
I didn't want, I was gonna be late.
well, yeah, she told me that you were like on the way.
But that was just, I didn't know whether we were gonna have a quorum.
So we were.
As always, it was close, but we did it.